After day 9 and a scrimmage in that 9, obviously we have a little bit more in the evaluation folder. And realizing that we're still 3 weeks away from the game. So we've got a long way to go, but we do have some information now. And information that factors in some of the young guys. So I think the biggest thing is going to the young guys. A guy like Daniel Thomas has shown sparks of being a guy that is emotionally and mentally mature. And we scrimmaged. He went into the stadium for the first time, and it was not too big for him. And that's kind of, I use that as an example, but that's kind of what we're looking for in those young guys that have not played a whole lot, is when they get in those situations, particularly over in the stadium, that it's not too big for them, because we're teaching them to be, mentally and physically mature, making sure that we're physical players and we're mental players as well. But then the other part is the emotional part of it, of just that, when I make a mistake, I can play the next play. And putting that all together, Derek Brown is another guy that is starting to show flashes of a young guy. The guys that were here in the spring, obviously those guys, Marlon and Trey, and those guys have really just they just still are progressing. They have their bad moments, but I think the thing that's most encouraging about that is that when they have their bad moments, they play the next play with confidence. They don't look at the ground, bad body language, those kind of things, and let one mistake be 2 or 3 more mistakes because they're thinking about something they shouldn't be thinking about. So we're working on that really hard and made some progress with it. I think across the board, we're getting the physicality from the infant stages up front that we need. We still got a ways to go. Obviously, that is set by the older guys and Carl and Mons and those guys, and they've done a good job of setting that tempo, but we've got to get the whole group there. We've got good numbers there. We've got good depth there, but we've all got to get physically combative in the trenches. And so that's going to be key. I think our pass rush, we've seen some sparks of being able to affect the passer, and that's good. As far as on the back end, I think, Wesley's done a really, really nice job of developing technique and understanding of the game. Our corners with Dean and JD and Carlton, those 3 obviously have stood out. They should stand out. They're very capable players, but we've got to add another guy to that mix some way, somehow. 3's not enough, and 4 sometimes is not enough, particularly when you're playing in a league that plays a lot of spread offense. At the linebacker position, we keep making progress. And I think 57, Davis has done a good job. He and Trey of quarterbacking the defense, of getting things lined up. They understand it. They handle pressure well. So that's been a positive. Darrell Williams is coming along. We're using him in several different roles, and he's handling it very well and being productive. Atkinson went into the scrimmage and was very, very productive. In fact, he was the most productive player in the scrimmage, if you factor in everything, meaning they get negative points for loafs, they get negative points for mental errors, they get negative points for missed tackles, they get positive points for the positive things they do, and he was the highest point getter. So he's playing fast and playing in his comfort zone. That's kind of synopsis of where we're at individually. Collectively, we've got a lot of work to do, but we have a schedule and we're on schedule for the most part. We've just got to keep getting physically dominating and mentally sharp and understanding our job, because you can go out on the practice field and practice for the next 3 weeks, and I'll promise you, in the first game, in the first 15 plays, we will see something in which it's out of the coach's hands now. They have to be a problem solver. It's not some card we showed them in practice. It's not some rep they've seen. It's something new. And they've got to apply their principles, apply their trade, and be a problem solver. without the coach out there. So we've got to get that developed at a rapid speed.
Kevin, having guys like Trey and Deshaun at linebacker, you said they're kind of coming on and taking control. How much does that help in what you're just talking about, those things?
Well, obviously, if you got to have a quarterback. I mean, the quarterback has to get everybody at the start on the same page. Now, there's things going on the perimeter or inside that may be different, where you gotta make a check based on a 3-man surface or a 2-man surface, and so those things we're coming along. I think the secondary we're still a work in progress, but doing a better job of making sure we understand the concepts that we've got to apply to the things we're getting, so that when those things come up that you hadn't repped, they can apply the concepts. And we've got, Trey has done a good job on the back end. He really has. He's been around and played in the league, and you can tell. And so he's pretty competent. Stephen Roberts is making progress, making plays. And so we just got to keep going down that road.
Where's Darrell Williams in fall camp in your eyes right now? Is he a guy you could put out there if you had to play tomorrow and figure some things out?
Darrell? Oh, he wouldn't have to figure it out. I mean, he's obviously he's a smart player. He's a physical guy. He can run, and he is developing nicely. I mean, I would have no problem with putting him on the field at all.
Coach, where's Daniel Thomas playing, and what is it about him that's standing out to you?
Well, I think the biggest thing in a simple thing with Daniel is that he's playing money in the dime package. He's playing safety. And the biggest thing, it's not too big for him. It's not too big for him. I know that's a simple statement, but it's just not too big for him. He looks like somebody who has been doing it here for an extended period of time.
You mentioned the top 3 corners. Where does Halsey fit in at this point?
He could be easily the 4th guy. He's kind of a master of a lot of trades. He can play star, he can play safety, he can play corner, and he's a smart guy, and it's not too much for him.
How valuable is that to have a guy that can do all those things?
Well, you'd like to have a lot of them. It helps because in the course of a season, as we all know, I mean, you guys have covered this for a long time, that they're, particularly on that back end back there, if you make a mistake there, everybody knows it. And so the more that you are interchangeable, it allows you to understand conceptually what your job is, what the stress points of the defense are from different angles. And so you can be a problem solver.
By the time the season starts, Kevin, do you think that because of his seniority, experience, and versatility that Josh could be the starter opposite Carl?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I understand your question. I appreciate your question, but I think I go back to the thing that Josh is a guy that is factored in those guys that if we put him out there on the field, somebody isn't going to say on the headset, what's he doing out there? And that's a starter. Now, does that mean the first play? I don't know that. I mean, we got too much to – but I know this. I don't think any one of our coaches are going to say, what's he doing out there if he's out there the first play? Or if he's out there in a critical situation in the 4th quarter, which, quite frankly, is more important than the first play.
Who else are you looking at corner besides Josh Halsey for that 4th and 5th spot?
Well, we got Broussard, who is there, and Josh can do it, and then of course we've got the ones that we've already talked about.
With the pass rush, you said you saw sparks. How do you kind of make that next step, get more consistency? Is it chemistry along the group? Is it individual? Just work it. We've got some good pass rushers, and so we just got to develop their trade and their craft. We've got to develop them and understand leverage and what their trade, how to master their craft.
Yeah, talking about the importance of having guys on the interior pass rush. People might think just guys off the edge, but having guys that can get the quarterback from those inside spots, how valuable is that for you?
Well, yeah. You've watched the same games of the quarterbacks we've got coming down the road. I mean, one guy off one edge from one side, that doesn't work. And so, the thing you'd like to do is be able to generate a 4-man pass rush in which any 4 that can get free at any time, because that's certainly easier on calling a game than having to bring 5 or 6 or 7 to get him on the ground. And so it's important.
Ken, what have your impressions been of Trey Matthews since he's actually been out there and been able to do stuff? You weren't able to see anything from him in that regard.
Yeah, that's what I talked about earlier when I was talking about Trey and talking about the secondaries. You know, he's got Trey he has natural instincts. Obviously, it's not too big for him. You know, I didn't know that. I'd never coached him before. Obviously, I'd seen him on TV. I'd seen him on video. He's played in this league. But it's there. It's real. I mean, he understands conceptually the game. You know, if you get over there and you got bunch set, he knows the concepts you're going to get. If you got stacks, he knows the concepts you're going to get. If you got minus splits, he understands that. And he's good at alerting guys to that.
And what have you seen from Devereaux Lawrence? Got quite a journey to get here.
Well, he's a very strong and powerful man. And he is developing his technique and coming along very nicely. We're trying to make sure that every time he lines up, he can command a double team, and he has the ability to do that. We just got to, I think Devereaux would tell you this, and Coach Gardner would tell you this, it's all about, when you're dealing with college players, is developing their trade and then developing the consistency to go with it.
How's Trey Williams' ankle doing?
Pardon me?
How's Trey Williams' ankle doing at this point?
Well, I don't normally comment on injuries. I guess you know that medical report. I just don't comment on it, but he'll be fine.
As far as TJ Neal goes, I mean, has he shown you here in the last 3 or 4 days with the full pass that he's going to hit?
Who's that?
TJ, the middle linebacker.
TJ
The
Neal.
middle linebacker from Illinois.
Oh, TJ Neal. I couldn't hear you. Yeah, TJ is again. I keep saying this same thing, but it's very, very important that things aren't too big for him. When you go out there and practice, and it's 2 minutes at the end of the day, you know, it's not just like a practice play in the regular practice where they run the play and there's no end result. You know, in 2 minutes, there's a winner and a loser. Somebody's coming off that field winning 2 minutes or losing 2 minutes. We had it today. He goes out there in 2 minutes and is doing what he's supposed to do and executing it with ease. Why? He's been in 2 minute situation in big games before at this level. And so that shows up. I mean, he is a contact player. You know, he fits the run. He's got good instincts in the run game. I joke with him all the time. He should. You know, he hadn't seen a forward pass since where he came from, so. He kind of looks at me funny. He didn't understand that, but in my day, that meant something. It doesn't really anymore, but it did.
You've had one scrimmage already. What are you looking for in scrimmage 2 out of your defense?
I think eliminate mental errors. We tackle very well in the first scrimmage, so that needs to continue. That, you know, that's probably the biggest thing in this new age of the way we have to practice, and so many days of this and so many days of that, and I understand that, but you've got to be creative in the way you teach tackling, and that's not live, that's not full speed, and so you always kind of are very, very concerned, particularly on your first couple of scrimmages, of where are we tackling. We tackle very well. We've got to continue to do that. So you know, that is a big thing. Be physical, give great effort, and when you get a chance to knock a guy down, knock him down.
What's your evaluation of Byron Power in the short time you've been able to work?
He's progressing very nicely. He's progressing very nicely. He, you know, he has a skill set, and he's developing very nicely.
You like what he's doing against the run specifically?
Pardon me?
Do you like what he's doing against the run?
Well, that's getting a little bit deep, if slicing a guy up, what he does this and what he does that, but he's made progress in my mind. And so, but, you know, I'm not going to get that in deep in evaluating a player publicly. That's kind of between me and Byron, but that doesn't mean that I'm not answering your question that he hadn't done a good job at it.
Kevin, when it comes to first scrimmage, did you feel like the unit was ahead of where you wanted to be? Were they a little behind, or were they just exactly where you thought?
No, I'm a little bit too old to try to evaluate it that way. You know, today is today. Mm-hmm. All right, did we improve from yesterday? We did in some things, we did in a lot of things, and we did in some very important things. Did we slip back in some areas? Yes. And then we will approach tomorrow when we wake up. Trying to assess all that. What happened in March is irrelevant. What happens in September is too far away today.
Yeah, good.
Good? Thank you.